One. Welcome to the Paleo Show with today's guest, Nell Stephenson. Sorry, I totally got it wrong. And
Glad we cleared that up.
She is a life coach and an author of Paleoista. And just to introduce everybody, Gary is over there in the Columbia jacket, and myself, Heath Squier. Gary is from the Primal Power Method, and myself, Heath Squier. I run Paleo Inc. and JulianBakery.com. Nell, welcome to the show. I'm very excited to have you on. I definitely, I've been wanting to talk to you for a while. I think you're a real role model for, a lot of women out there that are looking to do paleo right. You're obviously very fit and in shape, and I like kind of how strict you are about paleo. And I always see your little tweets and stuff about, no, this isn't paleo. No, yes, this is paleo.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool to see your stance. And I would say you're kind of more in the Dr. Cordain camp in regards to very strict paleo compliance. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you came to be so paleo and how you found out about paleo and kind of what you're doing right now?
Sure, absolutely. I found paleo because I was sick of being sick. My whole life was sabotaged with GI issues, even though I was eating what I was told was a healthy diet. Lots of vegetables and fruits, and I was fortunate enough to be raised by a hippie mom, so she was very diligent, making sure we didn't have sugar and preservatives and packaged junk and that type of thing. But we absolutely ate our fair share of whole grain products and beans and stews and organic dairy and all that kind of thing. So even though I was eating what looked like a healthy diet, I was plagued by stomach issues my whole life, and it got worse and worse till the point where in my early 20s I was regularly going to GI specialists, ER doctors, and this was sabotaging my life on a day-to-day regime, let alone what I was trying to do with my athletic career. So the ultimate sort of straw that broke the camel's back was going to the last specialist, who gave me a test for celiac disease, which fortunately I did not have. But his takeaway message was, you don't have celiac disease. Whatever you're eating is not really going to play too much of a role in how you're feeling. I had asked him about gluten, and he said, well, you don't have celiac disease, so if you cut gluten out of your diet, that would actually be foolish, because you're going to compromise your ability to get enough fiber and vitamin B12, because that's, how else are you going to get that if you don't eat bread? Right. And then he gave me a prescription for Prozac because there was nothing wrong. And so, I'm like, this is crazy. And I mean, everything that I had been taught, just from the media, as well as in my studies in exercise, phys, and nutrition, told me I needed the 6 to 11 servings of grain a day. And I was thinking whole wheat is good for me and all these other things, especially as an athlete. I certainly need to have carbohydrates in the form of pasta and bagels and bread. But I was so sick of being sick. And I mean, I was in pain every day, afraid to be away from the restroom. Just the only thing that would help would be to double over into a ball and curl up and just, try to sort of counter the pressure that was coming in from my abdomen. So I went online, started doing some research, and I learned that we can have a latent allergy to gluten. It's not just celiac disease. It's not all or nothing. In fact, 1 in 133 people have sensitivity to gluten, according to the Celiac Foundation. So One thing I always want to point out is, whatever you feel about paleo or whatever you choose to eat, gluten is a bad idea for all of us. Just want to throw that out there. So I did the gluten-free thing for a year, and when I cut gluten out, I felt better in 3 days. And I thought, this is ridiculous. So I did the gluten-free athlete's diet for a year. So I was, thinking I needed that fuel. So gluten-free bread, all that other stuff, which is, there's a time and a place for it, but if you're relying very heavily on that, you're still eating a lot of refined processed foods. So the seed had been planted, and I thought, all my life I was eating whole wheat and all these, other grains that have gluten, thinking I needed them and that they were making me healthy, and they were actually making me very sick. What else is there that's fitting that same bill? So I went back online. This was about 2004, 2005. Did some research and learned about the paleo diet and Dr. Cordain's work, and it just made so much sense. And, just to clarify, if anybody's unfamiliar with what paleo really is, what he says is it's a diet based on the way our ancestors ate. It doesn't mean you actually have to be a caveman in 2014. You can. There's nothing wrong with that. But the idea is to take the food groups that they ate and mimic that approach with foods that are readily available to us today in our farmers markets, our grocery stores, and even in our own backyards. So the idea is so simple. Eat a lot of vegetables, eat natural proteins, eat a good amount of good, healthy fat. Don't eat things in packages and refined items and canned foods and that type of thing, and get some activity in. It's that straightforward, and that's really what paleo is, and that's how I came to find it for myself. And then from a business standpoint, prior to that, I had mostly been doing personal fitness training I started implementing some of the paleo principles with a few clients, ones that sort of identified with me more because I knew it had worked for stomach issues. I knew it would work for athletic performance. But over the course of the next couple of years, now that brings us to about 2007, 2008, I realized that everybody seemed to benefit. And I wasn't overstepping my bounds because I was giving general, food recommendations to personal training clients. And that's kind of how my business has evolved from what was initially private fitness training to nutritional counseling one-on-one, and now being able to work with, still working with people individually, but also reaching out to larger corporations. And really my goal is to educate as many people as I can, for no other reason than I'm really, really passionate about how we can empower ourselves and heal ourselves just by eating real food and omitting things that are not food.
Yeah, I think the takeaway from what you're saying is, the GI issues are probably causing you a lot of inflammation. So
exactly.
After removing it, paleo diet is really about an anti-inflammatory diet.
Yes.
So by removing these inflammatory things like corn, beans, grains, you're actually able to remove the inflammation. Your joints are going to feel better. Your body's going to move better. You're going to be able to work out harder. I think that's one of the reasons why CrossFit and so many trainers love paleo, is because of the anti-inflammation. So, and it makes sense too, because your stomach is happy all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not bloated anymore.
Well, you don't think about your stomach. That was, Nell, I kind of went through that too, especially growing up. I had severe allergies to dairy and grains, and what did I eat all the time? Dairy and grains. And
because you need your calcium.
Oh yes, of course. And I had horrible eczema, and I remember the bloating, the throwing up, the nausea, the horrible. I remember getting horrible stomach cramps to where I'd have to miss school that I had stomach cramps so bad.
Yeah.
It was amazing that once I made the change several years ago, I no longer thought about my stomach. It was really bizarre that I never realized what it was like to go through a day without worrying about some weird shooting pain in my abdomen or bloating or gassiness. It all went away for the most part. Don't get me wrong. There's days when you eat something and get you or whatever, but nothing like what I used to have. My worst days now are better than my best days then.
Exactly. And that's the thing that a lot of people have. There's a big disconnect between what we're eating and how we feel. And it's perpetuated by experiences such as mine, where you go to the doctor, they don't ask you what you're eating. It's kind of seen as an afterthought. It may have a little bit to do with it, but we don't identify with how we're feeling and what we're eating. And it's also become acceptable to feel not great all the time. And everybody, not everybody, but so many people are existing in a state of what I refer to as subclinical illness, where they don't actually have a diagnosis. They don't actually have cancer. They're not obese. They don't have diabetes, but they just don't feel great. And every day they have a little bit of a headache. They don't have good energy. They're on a sugar crash all the time, not regularly digesting food. Sleep quality is poor, yet they're so used to it that when somebody asks, how are you doing? They say, I'm fine. And they just accept it. And this part.
Monster and Red Bull are so big.
Oh yeah.
Honestly, there's not a morning. If I ever go to the gas station in the morning, 90% of the people walking out of there are walking out with these huge, big old cans of just toxic chemicals and
is. Exactly.
And they just load up all day long. Then they go home, and then and they feel horrible. They stay up too late, and then they start the perpetual cycle.
Sugar-free Red Bull now, Gary.
Aspartame is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it's a way to go.
Yeah, you want to kill yourself.
It's good for weight loss too. It's a great, it's a really good approach. You can actually subsist on like 1,000 calories a day if you just, replace some of that water that's so bland. Get some Diet Coke in there.
And those vegetables are horrible. They taste so bad, and they might make you feel good. So don't mess around with that.
No,
go eat 5 bagels with with your Red Bull, and everything's fine.
And also the broccoli doesn't keep. Where you could go to Costco and get a large package of protein bars with aspartame in them, and just keep it in your pantry for a month, and you don't even have to worry about grocery shopping. That's really the way to go. I think I've had it wrong all this time.
It's so sad. It's so sad because they're putting sucralose in everything.
Yep. I know.
Aspartame. And sucralose, now we know it changes your gut biome, so it makes you gain weight. And and they're like, we only use a little bit. Like, I love Quest Nutrition's answer to why is there sucralose in your bars? Well, we only use a little bit. Really? You know how that's because it's 100 or 1,000 times sweeter with sugar.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And that actually,
you gotta love the name. The name is total, and that's what the food industry is brilliant at. What is really close to sucralose? Sucrose.
Right.
So we'll just change just a little bit, and it sounds like this healthy, natural occurring food. And then you go,
And I mean, it's the same idea with the positioning of sugar, like, oh, everything's okay in moderation. That is such nonsense. I have clients who have, I memean, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that many, if not most people, are addicted to sugar. And I don't think that word is overused or exaggerated.
No,
it is a drug. I refer to a study that I read about in which rats were given sugar and cocaine at different periods. And I didn't know this about rat behavior, but apparently they like to stay to the side and the perimeter of things. And if they go into the center of a room, it's the equivalent of risking their lives. So when they were given the opportunity to choose either sugar or cocaine, they all went for the sugar and went to the middle of the room to risk their lives for it. And when the sugar was removed from the game, they all withdrew into a fetal position and began shaking. So if that's not drug addiction, come on. And
that study in my book, actually. That is a study. It was done at Princeton, if I remember right.
I think so.
Yeah.
And so I have clients that, I mean, I would say the amount of people that actually take paleo out of the picture prior to working with me, if the people that actually have the ability to literally have one cookie or one whatever the thing is so few and far between. And I have clients who it's not a matter of having a stronger willpower. It's a physiological reaction in the brain. And Dr. Cordain refers to sugar having an opiate-like effect in the brain. So somebody that has this issue with sugar, it's not everything in moderation is not the way to go. And it's like telling somebody that's trying to taper off heroin. You can have a little bit now and then. And I'm not making light out of a very serious situation, but it's the same thing. And that's another thing like gluten. There's absolutely no good reason for anybody to be eating gluten, and there's absolutely no good reason for anybody to be subsisting on a diet primarily comprised of white sugar products.
Well, it's interesting you bring up sugar because at least Gary and I talk about this all the time, that there's so many bloggers and other authors, and this is one of the reasons I respect you, by the way, that are out there. These other bloggers and other authors are pushing these sugar-filled, maple syrup-soaked almond pancakes and stuff like that, and it's just this oversaturation of, sure, it's natural, but they're complete, and it's no wonder these people, like, I was reading on some of their blogs that their fans are saying, I'm gaining weight on paleo. And you wonder why. It's because your recipes are saturated in sugar. And it's like, we had Dr. Cordain on, he compared honey to regular sugar. It's, sucrose, it's honey, sugar is sugar.
Right.
And I think if your goal is to lose weight, and feel great, you have to reduce the amount of sugar, no matter where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing with them. There was a recent, there's some ebook download or whatever with the best paleo recipes that's floating around right now, and half the people on there have no business putting their picture up as fitness or health experts at all. I mean, they're not overweight, they're grossly overweight.
Yeah.
And that's where I get angry, and they hate me. They think I'm just a bully and, I'm a body shamer or whatever. But I've been in the fitness industry a long time. I've been in athletics a long time, and I get really pissed off when someone calls themselves an expert who has absolutely done none of the background work, done nothing. Matter of fact, I'd like to call them out and see how many of these idiots are even CPR certified. Yeah. I bet you it's almost zero. That's how stupid these people are. They can't even go out and if someone falls over after eating their pancakes, resuscitate them because they're too dumb. But you go look at them, and I look at them, I go, you are a joke. You look like a joke. You're ruining the movement. You're making me look bad. You're making everyone involved in it look bad. But yet that's what they do, because that's all they sell are cookbooks. It's cookbook after cookbook after cookbook, and that's it. And I just laugh, and some of them try and mess around with their pictures and Photoshop them a little bit and stretch them out, make them look a little thinner. And
picture.
It's horrible. I mean, it is, and that's unfortunate what's going on right now.
No, I mean, you're the epitome of paleo done properly. You've been able to change your macros, and you've been able to reach your ideal weight. I always say if you haven't lost those last 15 pounds and you're a weight loss guru and you haven't gone all the way to your ideal weight,
15 pounds. How about the last 50 pounds
or 80? But anyway, you shouldn't be dispensing weight loss advice because the last 15's the hardest. And
well, that's where the expertise comes in. The experts know how to make you lose that last 15.
Yeah.
So many
have done it.
So many points you spoke to that resonate so strongly with me, and I completely agree. I'm always, people say I'm dogmatic, or I'm paleo police, or I'm this, or I'm that. That's fine. The thing I want to clarify is this is not my version. People say, oh, it's your way. It's not my way. I wish it was, believe me. I wish I invented the paleo diet, and I wish I had the patent on it. Can you imagine that?
But y'all, yeah.
Right. I have had the opportunity to learn about Dr. Cordain's work, and before him, Dr. S. Boyd Eaton's work, and Mark Sisson, who's been in the field for a long time, and Rob Wolf. I think these are, people that have been in the space for such a long time, and now you're right, it's exploding, and there's so much out there that's not paleo, and that's why the word is. It's such a fine line between using it. And my position is this. I do wholeheartedly believe that all of us who are humans can absolutely benefit from being 100% paleo. I don't have a question about that. The balance comes in with what makes sense for you on an individual basis that makes you healthy, and then you can sustain it for your entire life. So if I have a client, my goal when I have a client is when you're working with me, I will suggest that you're 100% paleo. I have had clients say, I read about being 85% paleo, so I would like to try that approach. I would like to have beer and pizza on Friday. Can you plan that into my menu? And I'm like, you really want to hire me to tell you that you should cheat on Friday? If you make that decision, you're a grown adult, you can make that decision. But to understand, if you've only been trying this approach for a few days and then you go have gluten and dairy, and then you say it doesn't work, you haven't given it a fair shot. And to your point before, I've had many people approach me when I'm doing a talk or a lecture saying, I don't get it. I tried paleo and it didn't work. And I say, okay, well, let's review what would a typical day like. Well, every morning I would wake up and have paleo pancakes with honey, because honey's natural. And then I would make chocolate energy date honey bars, and I have those as a snack around 10. And then at lunch I have paleo noodles with cashew cheese, fettuccine Alfredo. And then in the afternoon I have another one of those brownie chocolate bars that I make as a snack. And then at dinner I have some more of that fettuccine pasta I made with nut flour, and that's the example. And I'm not making fun of anybody. This is the information. If you go online today and know nothing about paleo, you can find recipes that fit all of these different things. And so, I speak to these people, and I'm like, well, okay, what about the vegetables? Oh, I had a small side salad with dinner. Okay. And so that's not the paleo approach. That is what I refer to as maybe a slightly less offensive version of, or gluten-free version of, the standard American diet. So we have to rethink the way we approach food. The idea is not to take a listing of foods that we commonly find and eat and then sort of try to revamp them with paleo-ish or faux paleo substitutions and then rely on that as the mainstay of what we're doing. However, that does not mean that there's not a time and a place to have a special occasion. And that's why, for example, in Paleoista, I have a recipe for chocolate Paleoista truffles. Those are something I make at the holidays and I give them as a parting gift. Or maybe I'll make it on an anniversary. But look back at cavemen and in the paleo diet, read about how often did they eat honey. Well, I don't know, but they probably would have come across a hive maybe once or twice a year, and they probably would have gorged because it tastes good, and they probably wouldn't have done it again for another 6 months, as an example. So we don't need to be having bars and things and gluten-free treats every single day. We need to be eating a ton of vegetables. We need to be eating good amounts of healthy fat. We need to be eating wild natural proteins. That needs to be the crux of our diet. I think, again, try it for 30 days, at least as a starting point. See how you feel. That way you won't feel like you can never have X food again. And if you choose to test things and see how your own body reacts, let that be the message to take away. Because if you go those 30 days and you don't have any of the foods that you think you can never live without, and a Greek yogurt is really big right now. A lot of clients say, I can't live without my Greek yogurt for breakfast. Okay, so go 30 days without the Greek yogurt. Try it. And then if you wake up the next day and you have bloating and your skin has broken out and you have a migraine headache, that is your body telling you Greek yogurt doesn't work for you. Everything else aside, and that your body telling you needs to supersede everything else, including what I'm telling you, including what your doctor tells you, including what a skin allergy prick test tells you. These foods are making you sick. You need to educate yourself, test things on yourself, and it doesn't require anything else other than just sampling different foods and omitting foods. And that's really the best information you can get.
That's exactly how I did it. I found out that I had a wheat allergy, and of course my parents happened to own a bakery. And so little did I know, I had this brain fog. I had mucus going on when I consumed, wheat.
Yeah.
And I would get really tired, and not until I eliminated it did I notice the extreme clarity I had all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I had bursitis in my knee. That went away because I always played sports. So yeah, I know. It's definitely the best way. So now I wanted to say congratulations because you were on Dr. Oz, twice this year?
Yes, once last year and once this year. Thank you.
Okay, and so was our bread. So Paleo Bread was on Dr. Oz also this year. So we've both been on. Now, I think it was this year you were on, and was Chris Kresser on at the same time as you were?
Yes, he and I were on together this past February, and then last April, Dr. Croydon and I were on.
And this year, I wanted to say, your recipes were awesome. I think Dr. Oz is kind of the epitome of making it in such a great mainstream, show to get the word out about paleo. And I don't know about you, but I was really shocked when I saw your meal plans and then Chris talking about having legumes as a part of the paleo diet. I almost fell out of my chair.
Yeah.
And I had my family calling me saying, I didn't know you could have beans.
No, it's really confusing. and that's the thing. And my position is, I'm not saying my way is the only way to go. Everybody else is wrong. That is not at all what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I want to teach people about the research that Dr. Cordain has done. That's what the paleo diet is. If somebody chooses to have something else and it works, they feel it works for them, and they've tried lots of other things, because I'm definitely a fan of testing things on your own body. I certainly did. I was vegan for 2 years, for heaven's sakes. But that doesn't mean that makes the food, if you're somebody who advocates the paleo diet, and then you decide, or you test and you figure out that X food that's not part of the paleo diet, but you implement it to your own diet and work with some people, and they seem to have good response with it, that doesn't make that food become paleo any more than when I was vegan. If I had counseled a client, and when I started eating fish, which I jokingly refer to that fish was my gateway protein, because I was vegan for 2 years, and 6 months into it, I was craving fish and dreaming about fish and waking up feeling guilty. I finally gave in with a can of tuna, of all things. But that didn't, and I mean, it was a long thing. It did not happen overnight. But if I would have still counseled my clients to be vegan and tell them to add fish is not part of the vegan diet. So the thing is, it's not my way or the highway, but whatever it is that you're having, call it something else. Call it, Bill's diet or something like that, but just don't call it paleo, because it's not. It's
that was our
misrepresenting
biggest beef now, and that's what we got in a little Twitter war with Chris, and he actually showed his true colors as being a complete idiot. Being very disrespectful. I mean, the guy was
especially to Dr. Cordain, because on his moniker, on his tagline on his Twitter page said, "Don't follow the paleo diet, follow your own paleo code." And then you have Chris on national television saying to add, you can have dairy, and add and legumes. I think, it's so confusing. And I don't know about you, but if you're trying to lose weight and you're having beans as a part of your weekly regimen, that's not going to work out so well for you. That's a ton of starch. Well, we were saying, and then at the end of the day, Chris admits to not even eating beans himself.
Yeah, we got him to admit to not eating beans because they cause him problems. And that's what I got so mad is I said, hey, if you're going to take the paleo moniker, follow it.
Right.
Don't just make stuff up. And he couldn't get it through his thick skull that he was total hack and sellout by stealing the moniker and then totally changing it and calling it something else in order to promote his stupid lifestyle. And it's like, Chris, you can't make it in this business. Go wash cars or do whatever you were doing before. I got mad at it. I mean,
it's acupuncture.
Disrespectful to me, and I'm a lot older than him. And I swore, I said, if I ever see you in person, Chris, come find me. Come right up to me and say what you're saying right now.
He was really rude.
No.
He even hit me with what I thought he used an alias on Twitter and started calling me names. Started using it, calling me a effing idiot and go F yourself. And I knew it was him.
Oh my gosh!
Right at the same time, and I went. The guy had no followers, no picture, and as this is going on, Chris bails out, and all of a sudden, this guy starts. It was stupid, and that's where I get so mad at this kind of that group of people. Is it's like, what are you doing? Aren't we here to help?
No, I mean, see, the thing is, like, I don't know. it's such a fine balance because there's room for many different approaches. I mean, certainly, like I said, I was vegan for a while. If you would have told me back then to go paleo, I would have had, and because I was, and I can say this because I'm talking about myself, but this was when I just had graduated from college. So I had that sort of, I don't know if either of you went through that, but you're like 21 or 22 and you have your bachelor's degree, so you know everything. And if somebody tries to argue, I had a list of the top 10 reasons why I am right and you're wrong, and don't even try to convince me of your opinion. But for me, it was part of my own growth and age and experience and that kind of thing. So we have to not be pushy about it, but at the same time, my goal is to deliver the information. This is what paleo is. Give it a try. See how you feel.
Yeah.
I blog about this a lot. If you feel like paleo is not working, let's review some of the common mistakes that people make, and because it's really easy to read many of the publications that are out there, and they will tell you, oh, you can have dairy as long as it's from grass-fed cows, or there's a big thing with ghee, or there's a big thing with bacon. I mean, bacon, okay, if your bacon is from a pastured pig and it's not cured, sure, once in a while you can have that, but it's not the idea to categorize proteins, and you have things like lovely wild salmon and wild black cod and grass-fed meat and pastured pork and pastured poultry and bacon. That's not how it works. It's, you know what I mean? It's a balance of things. And that's where I think, for me, that's where the confusion arises. Is people still try to fit a square peg into a round hole they're trying to grasp for straws to sustain what they've gotten used to in the standard American diet, which isn't working. It's making them fat. It's making them sick. It's making them not productive, and so on and so forth. But they're trying to still use that with a gluten-free version of it, or a sort of a closer-ish version to paleo than that. But again, it's hard. You kind of have to pull the plug, cut the sugar, and throw all the stuff that you learned out the window. It's not about starting the day with a bagel. It's not about going low calorie. It's not about going fat-free. It's about balancing everything out throughout the day, having a lot of vegetables, having a lot of healthy protein, having a lot of fat, not overthinking ounces and calories. But that's not to say, I mean, some of the people position it as eat as much fat as you want. I don't agree with that. Because you could easily, I mean, the number one thing that I have clients that have an issue with is they eat way too much nuts. Nuts are a source of fat. Yes, absolutely. Yes, you can have nuts as a garnish on the paleo diet. But the idea is not to go to Costco and get one of those big vats of roasted nuts in peanut oil and have that as your snack and eat handfuls of it at the office just because it's easy and requires no prep. That doing so is still very inflammatory. All nuts are high in omega-6s, not omega-3s, so they're still inflammatory. And if you're eating copious amounts of nuts, not only are you getting those big inflammatory foods, but you're also eating lots of extra calories mindlessly. You're snacking, eating handful after nuts, and you're gaining weight.
Of paleo.
What's that?
I call them the potato chips of paleo.
Yeah.
Because they really are, and I've been guilty of it too. I've bought in containers, not containers, but I go to my store and I can get them in big bulk organic nuts, and I'd buy, like a pound or two at a time, and I would catch myself going by the kitchen and reaching in, and the next thing I know, I go, oh my God, in one day I ate a whole pound of nuts.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize I'd done it, and and after a while, I'd start, my joints would start hurting, and I was like, man, I totally overdid that. And now I just don't buy them. I'll buy them occasionally, and I buy them
just don't have them in the house.
I buy
agree.
Handfuls and put it in a bag, and that's it. Once it's gone, it's gone. But they're addicting. They are paleo crack. They really are.
Yeah, and I mean, there's no question about it. Nuts do taste good, but we have to not rely on them as our main go-to fat source, nor as our main go-to snack source. The way that I position it is try to think about foods as just being food, not breakfast food, lunch food, snack food. And one technique that helps sometimes is instead of calling it breakfast, lunch, snack, blah, 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 just call it meal 1, meal 2, meal 3. And that opens the window of possibilities so that it can gradually become more comfortable for people to have things like leftover steak and broccoli for breakfast. There's no problem with that. But as if you're kind of new to paleo and that feels a little foreign, then you can stick with foods that you already identify as being appropriate to have at that time of day. For example, if you went to any restaurant for breakfast, it would not be remotely strange to see a veggie omelet on the menu. So have a veggie omelet for breakfast. That's totally fine and totally paleo. And then transition your way so that, over time, you won't think it's strange to wake up and have some of last night's leftover salmon and salad for breakfast. That's what I have. It's just food.
Yeah, I eat salads for breakfast a lot now. I thought that was odd, and I caught myself. I went, I used to eat a lot of normal breakfast items even over the years, and I've noticed over like the last year, I eat salads as my first meal. And it's really changed. And I'm like you, I don't look at meal times or anything. And people are pretty shocked by this. And when I talk about it at workshops stuff, they go, well, what do you eat? When do you eat it? And I go, I don't know. I eat when I'm hungry, and I eat what I have. Or, every once in a while I'll go get something that I specifically want. But most of the time it's random. It's hodgepodge. I don't even know. And
it's so funny. I use that word all the time. It's totally – and I'm the same. Yeah. It's like you tune into your body. You're eating a balance of food. If everything's in the right balance, and again, you don't have to overthink it. Just take a plate, throw some vegetables on there, add some protein, maybe the size of the palm of your hand if you want a rough measurement. A nice good dollop of healthy fat, like half a small avocado or a big swish of olive oil. Have that throughout the day. When you're hungry, eat. Yeah. That's it. And people are really frightened about this, and I understand because I come from the same background. I just turned 40, so I was in that whole early 90s low fat, fat-free craze thinking, and for sure, I wanted to be fit and lean. I was counting calories, and there was always that fine balance between count calories, low energy, but I like what I'm seeing on the scale, and then it only lasts for a while because you're starving all the time, and then it's just this horrible dance that gets so emotional, and so many people are just sabotaged with it. And that's the other thing that's so beautiful about paleo is you identify the foods that make you sick, and so you voluntarily decide not to eat them. It's not that hard. It has nothing to do with having strong superhuman willpower. I haven't eaten gluten since 2005, and it's not because I'm secretly wishing I could have that cake or that pizza. It's so simple. A good example is if you've ever gone to a restaurant and had food poisoning, you will probably never go to the restaurant, but if you do, you certainly will never order that same dish. That happened to me. Unfortunately, there's this fabulous Indian restaurant near where my parents live, and we used to go there quite often, and I went once, and I had fish tikka, and I got really sick, and I'm scared to have fish tikka anywhere. But certainly at that restaurant, it's the same thing with gluten. When I realized that was making me so sick, and by simply not eating it, I have allowed my body to heal. It's not remotely interesting to eat it. And it's not, and sometimes people position it too. I mean, there's magazines that you see, even at Whole Foods, like gluten-free living, and the positioning is kind of like, woe is me. I found out I cannot eat gluten ever again. Right. But wait, I can make cake and cookies, and I don't need gluten. That's not the idea. It's
potato
not,
starch.
Yeah, it's not a punishment. It's a gift. I mean, think about how many things if you have the choice to heal yourself by just not eating a certain food, why on earth would you choose not to?
Well, and think about, we're actually now, once you're dialed into eating paleo, you're actually burning fat as energy. So
yes.
Of course you're going to be naturally lean. You're going to see your six pack if you're doing it right. Your body, You're going to see muscle definition. It just makes sense. And who needs these refined carbs? Get the carbs from healthy vegetables, sweet potato, something like that when you need it. But most of the time, my body doesn't even crave like kind of carb. I don't crave carbs at all, really. And I get them from my vegetables,
That's exactly the recipe. And that's the thing is we have to move away from functioning on a sugar metabolism. And the way we do it is by cutting immediately all the white sugar. One way to approach paleo is to ease into it. Maybe the first week you cut out all dairy. Maybe the second week you cut out gluten. That's fine. As long as you get to that point where you're having the 30 days. But the white sugar, you need to just cut it now. Pull the plug in one fell swoop. It's a little bit is enough to keep you addicted. And once you cut it, and if you're somebody who eats a lot of sugar, you'll have a couple of days that are going to be rough. You'll probably have headaches. You'll be cranky. But you have to see that through, and don't mistake that with not eating. Because if you're hungry, you need to eat. You just need to make better choices. Yeah. Keep it super simple. Do an hour in the kitchen, prep a couple of times a week, where you're equipped with a refrigerator full of steamed vegetables and prepared proteins. Maybe it's the summertime and you grill some salmon and some chicken, or it's the wintertime and you roast a whole fish. Whatever the case may be, just spend the time once a week or twice a week ideally, but even once a week, and then you can always portion things out and freeze them. But you position yourself and arm yourself with the ability to have at your fingertips, anytime you open the fridge at home, you've got your choice of vegetables, your choice of proteins, your healthy fats. Take them to work with you. Take them to school. It's so easy. It requires maybe an hour of prep a week or maybe 2 hours. Perfect. And considering
let me show you. This is Gary's. I'm supporting exactly what you're saying now.
I have mine in the other room. Otherwise, I'd show you too. See, that's all it takes. And people complain, I don't have the time.
Salad.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't have the time. Well, it's not you have to make the time. And the average American spends, I think, 5.4 hours a day watching television. You know what I mean? Get the whole family involved. Get the little kids involved. Just once a week, spend an hour and get your kitchen prepared. And that's what it's all about. It's not about what you can't have. It's about what you can have. And nourishing your body, tuning into what your body's telling you. And I mentioned this one client who years ago said, I don't want to listen to my body. My body tells me I need cake. Like, no, your body's not telling you it needs cake. That's you're having a blood sugar crash.
Right.
Anytime when I hear that word crave, I want to know, what did you eat before? How much time elapsed since the last time you ate? Sometimes I have clients who don't remember, not only do they remember not what they ate, but if they ate. I had one training client years ago came in after work, and she was really sluggish and low energy, and I don't know if I can work out. What did you eat? And she paused and said, I don't remember. I was in conference meetings all day, and I know at some point they brought in a cookie platter. I think I had a cookie. But she couldn't even remember what or if she ate. And we have to enjoy what we're eating. And the interesting thing is, when we get back and tune in and we're nourishing our body with this healthy balance of copious amounts of vegetables, and I'm saying copious because if I say copious, maybe somebody will eat, one piece of celery. Copious amounts of vegetables and protein and fat, get satiated, and then you're not thinking about food all the time, the way you would be if you were trying to go low calorie and have a Pop-Tart for breakfast. It's just...
Oh, those are so addicting, though. Yeah. I lived off those. See, I grew up in the 80s, too, Nell.
Yeah.
I'm a little older, and I grew up in the heyday of the 80s.
Yeah.
And 70s. 70s, my fuel was Kool-Aid and Pop-Tarts, Captain Crunch, and Fruit Loops. I mean, that was my daily
all the colors of the rainbow are represented.
Yeah, I had all...
So that actually was paleo. That actually was paleo then, because you had all the colors.
Oh, my God. Yeah, and, without getting into the kind of sociological side of where America is, as far as lack of community, lack of understanding or being in touch with food, with the earth. There's so many other things going on, but paleo simplifies that for you. You don't even have to worry about it, because if you just follow the premise, it all kind of comes together. And people think that they immediately have to grow a garden, they have to have a cow out in the backyard, or they've got to, go out.
You have to walk and run in barefoot shoes.
Barefoot, yeah.
You have to wear amber-colored goggles all the time.
Oh my God.
What else? You have to do CrossFit, because that's the only way you can do paleo. What else?
That's where me and you are the same. Is we grew up in different areas. I grew up with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Lou Ferrigno. That's what I grew up with.
Yeah.
And people laugh at them, but their principles of what they did were pretty close. The diet was a little off, but it wasn't too far off.
And I've had clients dead on. Yeah, exactly. And I've had clients whose parents or grandparents I've had the opportunity to chat with, and people that are in their 80s and 90s comment, this isn't any strange diet. They'll say, like, I heard about the paleo trend on the news, but you're telling me that it's just about eating vegetables and proteins and fat? That's what I did when I was a child, 90 years ago. And it's so...
had a farm.
Right.
Yeah.
And
that's
back
then everyone had a farm.
It's so, and I agree with you too. It pains me sometimes to see how it's so bastardized in the media. And every time you see an article about a month or so ago, I think it was on Good Morning America, and that they feature a couple. I think the couple was, I forget where they were based, but it's a couple who is paleo, and they run a paleo chocolate factory, and they kind of went through all the different stereotypes that people can identify with paleo, like I was joking about before. The barefoot running and the amber goggles and that type of thing. And so, fine, you see a healthy couple, they're enjoying an active lifestyle, they look fit, and then you cut away to the in-studio expert who goes back to the same old thing. Well, it's not. You can do it if you have the community, so that makes it sound like a cult. And it's not, it's definitely far too restrictive to do for the long term. No way you're going to get enough calcium because you're not drinking milk. And what about all you can't get enough fiber because you're not having the bread. So that's going to compromise your digestion. The bottom line is, can't really recommend it. And we see that all the time, and that's getting to mainstream America. And they're like, oh, it is just another fad diet. Or it's positioned as a trendy thing that celebrities do to get ready for a role. But again, that's a finite period of time, which just perpetuates the idea that, oh, so-and-so did X to get ready for a role, and he looks great, but, the next role he's going to do something and he'll gain 50 pounds to play a different type of character. It's so misrepresented in so many places. And I want more opportunities like I had on the Dr. Oz show to really get the message out there. Because it's just all I'm telling people is to eat real food.
Well, and get away from the trends. And that's what Paleo has fallen into. I'm primal because I do say dairy is okay to a certain point, but I explain it. I say, if it's raw, organic, and you can digest it, but I also say, by the way, 70% of Americans are lactose intolerant, so figure it out.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the things I love about what Mark Sisson has done is he has a very clear brand. First of all, he looks the part. He looks incredible. He coined his brand Primal. He uses dairy. That is Primal. That's his space. He owns it, and he lives the part, and he walks the walk. That is how everybody should do it. If you have somebody that's positioning themselves as sort of kind of paleo, kind of gluten-free, call it something else, but do that and own it, and don't try to make paleo fit into that model, because if you're having sprouted grains and ghee and whatever else people are implementing as part of their own approach to paleo, it's just something else.
Yeah, well, it's always this trend, and that's the thing. You mentioned the amber goggles, and I laugh at those.
Yeah.
I mean, I get the concepts, but I've been around a while, and I've seen every fad come and go. I mean, they always rotate about every 10 years. They come back, and, it's when they start doing that, and, they show themselves running with 5 fingers, and, they run with them once, and then they never wear them again. They wear their amber goggles at work all day, and I'm all, wait, let's think about this a little bit. Let's get it back to reality. Do you really need those amber goggles? And, because the thing I'm kind of right now is the whole sleep thing and getting exposed to too much light at night. And I had an argument with someone recently, and I went, you do realize we would sit around a big raging fire at the end of the night, and we dance, drink, do whatever, we rest, eat, whatever, until we went to bed. And then we had these things called stars and the moon. I'm a little confused. So we're supposed to black out our entire room.
Yeah.
Not see any light at all, because it's going to screw up my sleep. And I go, that is asinine. I go, I went, just be practical about it. Don't go out and buy the $25 amber lab glasses I used to get in high school for free. Mm-hmm. Don't fall into these traps. I teach common sense. It's just think about it before you jump in. And I used 5 fingers for a while. I used them for a year and a half. They were okay. For the money and what they did, I just didn't like them. They weren't very durable. They wore out very quickly. And I'd go out in the woods and stuff, and I'd get thorns right through the side of my foot because they don't have any protection. But they're great if you want to run and you want to kind of break yourself in. But
I agree.
You can wear a minimalist shoe, too, that is less expensive, that you can wear every day, everywhere, and not worry about, having a bush go through the side of your foot, know.
I agree. It is common sense. I never actually tried the Vibrams myself, but you know what I do? I run barefoot. Once a week, I do a recovery run on grass. It's flat. I run barefoot. When I'm running on the trails, I have a really hardy trail shoe. When I'm doing a race, I have a very light race shoe. It's different shoes for different things. And same thing to your point with the glasses. I would almost argue, why do you have to put on amber glasses? Why don't you this is much easier said than done, and I get it because everybody's got crazy busy schedules these days. But if your job is such that you have to be online late into the hours of night working on a presentation for tomorrow or whatever it is that you're doing, maybe it's not about wearing the goggles that allow you to be on the computer longer. Maybe it's about powering down from work earlier and going to yoga class. There just has to be there's a breaking point, and I've seen it in a couple of close friends who just go all the time, and then they drop dead or have a heart attack when they're 50 because they just have stressed all the time, even though they're eating a healthy diet or exercising. I just want to throw that in there because there's definitely an important element to addressing to make sure we do have enough rest and recovery. But again, it's got to be balanced. It's not about.
It's essential. It is really essential, and you hit on some good points. And like I said, I'm in a little different community. I'm a little different guy. I'm in survivalist, self-sufficiency communities. I do this. I'm building a house that's off the grid on 20 acres in the mountains. I'm awesome. Taking this to maybe an extreme to a point, but I still have to work. I still have a job. I still have to make a living. But I choose, and this is what these communities teach, is that you need to start thinking about the lifestyle you're leading, and is it something you can do long term? And is it time for you to make a change and start sacrificing some things in order to be happy and healthy? And that's the decision Americans are faced with today. Do you want to be ground into the ground and work, 60, 70 hours a week until you're 70 and then crap out and have 50 bazillion ailments and then die.
Right.
Or you want to say, you know what, I don't need, 150 channels or 250 channels on cable. I don't need, the $110,000 car that I can't afford. I don't need 8 bedrooms in my house. It's about, and that's, I think, the paleo movement needs to get back to. It started a little bit there, but then they got away from it. Mm-hmm. And that's where I try and push everything to, is it's a whole lifestyle. You got to think about everything. And so if you cut out sugar, but you don't cut out the stress, well, you're still dumping glucose into your blood from all the cortisol. So now you got to figure something else out, because now your body's adapting to those stresses by dumping sugar in that you took out. Yeah, is it not as harmful? No, but it's still going to kill you earlier. So, and that's what, do you teach that with your clients, as far as, do you bring them in and talk about whole lifestyle changes, and if they're in a bad job, maybe you should, or a bad relationship, maybe you should change that?
Yeah, I mean, we get into that to a degree. I mean, my expertise is certainly more with implementing the nutrition and the fitness, but by default, often when I work with a client, certainly for a longer period of time, you kind of end up being a default therapist, and I'm not pretending I'm not a trained therapist, but you are a sounding board, and you hear from them. And so just to listen to them and have them, make their own discoveries and realize, I'm not happy at work, I need to make a change. And it's something I think people don't sometimes understand, is that there's always a choice. If you're somebody who is, regardless of if you're making a lot of money or you're not making a lot of money, whatever the case may be, if you can't get up every single day and say, I feel great, I have a spring in my step, I can't wait to start the day, address your food, address your movement, address your work. What is going on, and what can you do to make a change? Because ultimately we are all in control of our own future and destiny and health, and we have to be proactive in it, have to educate ourselves and learn about it, and address all the different things that aren't running smoothly. And there's no reason to remain stuck, even if you feel so stuck. Well, I have a spouse, and I have a huge house, and I have 3 kids. Yeah, it's going to be trickier for you to unstick yourself than somebody who is 25 with no responsibility, but it doesn't mean it can't happen. And there's just, I don't know, I think it's the more you open if you want to call it a Pandora's box, with understanding that you can first address yourself and your own health, and that doesn't make you selfish. I see that a lot especially with my mom clients, feeling like they put themselves last, that somehow if they address their own health and nourish their own body, that takes away from the time that they would have spent with the kids and family. But you have to be the healthiest mom you can be first, before you can be the best wife and mom for everybody else. So it's definitely a whole big picture, and it is a lifestyle, but it has to start with, what are you eating, and are you actually healthy? Have you reached your optimal health? And if not, start with what you're eating. It's so straightforward.
I agree. Can you speak a little bit to your new, I guess you're a paleo coaching in Los Angeles area. Can you speak a bit about what you have coming up, if you have any new books, and also what you're going to be doing regarding coaching? Because I think that's really exciting. I mean, hopefully you'll be able to, pop these things up all over the country. So
that is exactly the goal. So basically, I've opened a physical space. I'm in my studio right now in the Brentwood part of Los Angeles, and it is I'm kind of viewing it as like a beta test for what I would like to have other centers become. So what I've been doing online for the past several years is online counseling with both with individuals as well as corporations, to help them implement paleo eating and exercise into their daily regime. So the studio is going to be a place where clients who live locally can come in regularly and work one-on-one with their nutritional counseling, come in and meet for weekly checkups and that kind of thing. But also people that are not local, that happen to be passing through, can come in and just make that point of face-to-face contact. I have some really exciting things coming out before the holidays. I have my own nutrition app coming out, which will be available both on iTunes and Google, with a free meal plan. I'm partnering with a nationwide paleo fresh food delivery. And I have my third book is coming out January 5th, which is a series of 3 mini books about what to eat for breakfast, what to eat for workout, and what to eat for snacks. I'm also continuing to teach culinary. I teach paleo cooking classes at a local culinary boutique here in Santa Monica, and continue to work on my blog. And basically the big picture is I just want to reach people and educate them, and my hope is that this is a successful pilot studio, and that I can have these resource centers nationwide Somebody positioned it the other day and asked if it was going to be like a Weight Watchers, and I thought, you know what, maybe it could be. But as far as like a model for, there's so many people paleo is getting popular. Now we're seeing lots of food trucks and paleo options on the menu and that type of thing. So why not have a place where you can go in and get real solid information, hear a free lecture, do a nutritional consultation, and that's where I'm starting with, and we'll see what it grows into. But I'm very excited.
Now, is there a website for the studio if people? Because we have a lot. This show usually gets seen by over 100,000 people.
Yeah.
Of all the Julian Bakery customers and everything, we put it all over the place. Is there your website is paleoista.com.
It is.
And is there one for the studio yet?
There's a page on the website for the studio.
Cool.
I can share that URL with you.
I'll put it in the description area for everybody to find you, as well as links to Amazon for all your books and everything. Because
that'd be great.
Definitely want to support you, and I think what you're doing is amazing. And
thank you,
Gary, and I really want to thank you for coming on the show today, because I think there's just so many people doing it wrong, and also people causing confusion. And people like yourself and Gary and I think are the people that can really help people and kind of clarify a lot of the points out there, because there's so many people are confused. And it makes sense when you have people going on Dr. Oz causing confusion. They don't know who to follow. So
it's true.
There's so many good people like Mark and Dr. Cordain and yourself and many others that we've had on the show. So thanks again for coming on.
Oh, I appreciate the opportunity. I'm really glad you reached out. This has been fun.
Yeah, very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.